When you finally distance yourself from your wife, you rediscover who you are. Clarity replaces confusion, loneliness turns into freedom, and boundaries become clear. You see who truly cares, who respects space, and who values you. Distance awakens growth, self-respect, and the courage to demand the love and life you deserve. When you finally take a step back from your wife, the first and most profound change you notice is the rediscovery of your own identity. For years, relationships, especially marriages, have a way of blending two lives together so completely that it's easy to forget who you are as an individual. Your routines, your thoughts, your choices, even your desires often become intertwined with hers, leaving little room for your authentic self to breathe. Distance forces you to confront this, and at first it can feel strange, even uncomfortable. You might realize how much you've compromised or how much of your energy has been spent trying to maintain harmony rather than nurturing yourself. As the space grows, you begin to remember the parts of you that were neglected. The hobbies, dreams, and interests that were once vibrant begin to stir again. You recall the goals you had before the relationship became all-consuming, the ambitions that were quietly pushed aside in the name of support, compromise, or convenience. There is a subtle joy in this rediscovery, an almost childlike excitement in reconnecting with the things that once made you feel alive. You start to notice what brings you peace, what sparks creativity, and what fuels your passions. This process is not only about reconnecting with old interests, but also about understanding your personal values and beliefs more clearly. Without the constant influence of your partner's expectations or opinions, you begin to see the world through your own lens again. What do you truly stand for? What matters most to you? Which compromises are worth making, and which ones leave you empty? These questions, once buried under years of shared life, now demand honest answers. You realize that your voice, your opinions, and your decisions are valid, not because they align with someone else's, but because they reflect who you are. There's also an emotional dimension to this rediscovery. Distance allows you to feel your own emotions fully without them being filtered or moderated by another person's presence. You learn to comfort yourself, to find joy in solitude, and to navigate challenges relying on your inner strength. It can be terrifying at first because independence carries responsibility, and responsibility carries accountability for your happiness. But with each day, the fear diminishes, replaced by confidence. You realize that you are capable, resilient, and complete on your own. Even your social life begins to shift. You reconnect with friends, family, and communities that may have been neglected. Conversations become richer because they are not just extensions of marital life, but reflections of your personal growth. You begin to attract people who resonate with your true self rather than a version molded to fit someone else's expectations. Rediscovering your identity in the space created by distance is a journey of self-love. It is an awakening to the realization that your existence does not need validation from another to be meaningful. You start to value your own company, honor your needs, and make choices that reflect who you are, not who you were expected to be. It's a slow, sometimes painful process, but with it comes liberation, empowerment, and a profound sense of self that strengthens every part of your life. When you create distance from your wife, one of the most powerful changes that occurs is a profound clarity in your emotions. In the daily rhythm of marriage, feelings often become tangled. Resentments, love, frustration, hope, and disappointment all mix together in a confusing, overwhelming swirl. When you are constantly immersed in the relationship, it is difficult to discern what you are truly feeling versus what you feel you are expected to feel. Taking a step back allows you to separate these layers and see your emotions with unfiltered honesty. At first, this clarity can be disorienting. You may feel an initial wave of loneliness or guilt, questioning whether stepping back is right. These feelings, however, are not necessarily a reflection of the relationship's health. They are echoes of the habits, routines, and emotional dependencies that have built up over time. Distance allows you to feel each emotion fully, without distraction, without negotiation, and without the pressure to mask or suppress your true self. You start to recognize patterns, the moments that consistently cause pain, the triggers that lead to frustration, and the situations that ignite joy. This process also forces introspection on deeper levels. You begin to ask yourself why certain actions hurt, why certain words sting, and why some moments leave you feeling fulfilled while others leave you empty. The answers often reveal truths about the relationship that were previously hidden or ignored. You may realize that certain compromises or sacrifices you made were not aligned with your own emotional well-being. You may discover that some conflicts recur not because of external circumstances, but because of unspoken expectations, unmet needs, or incompatible values. As clarity grows, you also gain perspective on love itself. You begin to distinguish between love that nourishes and love that drains, between connection that elevates and connection that suffocates. You start to understand which aspects of your bond are genuine and which are rooted in comfort, habit, or obligation. This emotional insight is liberating, even if it is accompanied by pain. It teaches you to recognize not only what you want from your partner, but also what you need for yourself to feel whole and respected. With this newfound clarity, you can approach the relationship or any future relationships with honesty and intentionality. Your decisions are no longer clouded by confusion or fear. They are informed by a deep understanding of your own heart. You learn to communicate more clearly, set healthier boundaries, and respond to situations with thoughtfulness rather than reactive emotion. Even moments of anger or sadness are easier to navigate because you understand their root cause and can manage them without losing yourself in the process. Distance also cultivates gratitude. By stepping away, you may begin to appreciate the positive aspects of the relationship more consciously, seeing them not as obligations but as genuine contributions to your life. Similarly, you can confront and accept the flaws, not with denial or resentment, but with awareness and discernment. Emotional clarity allows you to balance empathy with self-preservation, attachment with independence, and love with respect for your own identity. Creating space in a marriage is not about detachment or apathy. It is about emotional honesty. It is about learning to read the signals of your heart clearly, understanding what truly matters, and refusing to settle for confusion disguised as connection. This clarity becomes a compass, guiding your choices, shaping your interactions, and giving you the confidence to navigate love, life, and relationships with authenticity, awareness, and strength. When you finally distance yourself from your wife, one of the most noticeable and profound changes is the shift in power dynamics within the relationship. In many marriages, the balance of power is subtle but constant, shaped by patterns of availability, emotional dependence, decision-making, and compromise. When you step back, intentionally creating space, you disrupt these patterns, and suddenly the dynamics that were once predictable become fluid. This shift is rarely about control or manipulation. It is about reclaiming your presence, your energy, and your autonomy in a relationship where those aspects may have been diluted over time. At first, this shift can feel uncomfortable for both partners. You are no longer the constant source of attention, the ready listener, or the immediate problem solver. Your absence forces your partner to confront the reality of your individuality and independence. They begin to realize that the relationship is not an automatic safety net, that effort, respect, and intention are necessary to maintain the connection. For you, it is empowering to notice that your value is not measured solely by your availability or the sacrifices you make. Your presence carries weight because it is no longer guaranteed. The change in power dynamics also brings clarity in accountability. With distance, each partner is confronted with their own role in the relationship. You are no longer responsible for smoothing over tension, anticipating every need, or absorbing emotional fallout. This allows both of you to see who contributes positively and who relies on patterns of dependency or control. The relationship becomes a mirror, reflecting not just love and affection, but also effort, commitment, and personal responsibility. Emotionally, this shift can be disorienting. Your partner may react with frustration, confusion, or even resentment as the predictability of old patterns disappears. These reactions, however, are valuable. They reveal underlying dynamics that were previously masked by constant availability and unquestioned compromise. For you, observing these responses provides insight into the strength and authenticity of the bond. You begin to recognize which behaviors were conditioned by comfort and which are rooted in genuine respect and care. As the balance changes, boundaries naturally become clearer. By stepping back, you reinforce the message that your time, energy, and emotional presence are finite and deserving of consideration. This empowers you to define your needs without guilt, and it compels your partner to acknowledge and respect them. The relationship, rather than being an unconscious flow of demands and responses, becomes a conscious negotiation of mutual respect, effort, and understanding. The shift in power dynamics also reshapes communication. Conversations evolve from habitual exchanges or reactive arguments into intentional dialogues where both perspectives matter. You begin to speak not just from obligation, but from clarity, self-respect, and purpose. The distance allows reflection, preventing knee-jerk reactions and encouraging a more thoughtful approach to conflict resolution. This shift is transformative. It is not about winning or dominating, but about rediscovering equilibrium, honoring individuality, and fostering a healthier, more conscious partnership. Power, once unconscious and uneven, becomes visible and negotiable. The relationship is tested, refined, and elevated because each person must now meet the other with awareness, effort, and authenticity. Through this process, you reclaim your agency, strengthen your voice, and cultivate a partnership that is balanced, conscious, and deeply rooted in mutual respect. When you finally distance yourself from your wife, one of the first and most palpable experiences is confronting the tension between loneliness and freedom. At first, the absence of daily interaction, shared routines, and constant presence can feel like a void. Loneliness hits in waves. The quiet moments in the evening, the empty spaces in your schedule, the absence of familiar gestures that once defined your daily life. It is natural to feel a sense of loss, even if the relationship had its difficulties. This loneliness is not a sign of weakness, but a reflection of the emotional attachment that was built over time. A part of you misses the comfort, the predictability, and the intimacy that was once a daily part of your life. However, as the initial pangs of loneliness subside, something remarkable begins to emerge. Freedom to think, feel, and act without the immediate pressure of someone else's expectations. Freedom to prioritize your own needs and desires without guilt or negotiation. This freedom is not reckless or selfish. It is intentional, grounded in self-respect and the understanding that your life is yours to shape. The contrast between loneliness and freedom is striking because it reveals how much energy was previously spent accommodating, pleasing, or adjusting to someone else. With distance, you reclaim that energy and redirect it toward yourself. This balance between loneliness and freedom is also deeply instructive. Loneliness teaches self-reflection, patience, and emotional resilience. It forces you to sit with your thoughts, confront uncomfortable truths, and acknowledge emotions that were often suppressed or overlooked. You begin to see patterns in your past behavior, recognize areas where compromise turned into sacrifice, and understand where emotional dependency may have crept in. These insights are painful at first, but they are necessary for growth. Loneliness becomes a mirror, showing you not only what you miss, but also what you truly need to feel whole. Freedom, on the other hand, allows for creative exploration and authentic living. You discover the joy of making choices purely for yourself, the satisfaction of pursuing passions that may have been dormant, and the thrill of experiencing life without constant oversight or influence. Small freedoms like deciding how to spend a Saturday morning, choosing your company, or exploring new interests become profoundly empowering. Over time, you realize that the discomfort of loneliness is temporary, while the liberation of freedom shapes a new version of yourself, more self-reliant, more aware, and more attuned to your true desires. This dynamic also reshapes your perspective on relationships. Experiencing both loneliness and freedom allows you to see love and companionship not as necessities for survival, but as choices that should enhance your life rather than define it. You learn to value presence without dependence and connection without compromise of self. The tension between loneliness and freedom becomes a teacher, helping you navigate not just the present separation, but any future relationship with clarity, balance, and emotional intelligence. Facing loneliness is an initiation into freedom. It is in the quiet, solitary moments that you find strength, insight, and courage. And it is through freedom that you reclaim your identity, your voice, and your life, learning that solitude is not emptiness. It is the canvas upon which the truest version of yourself can be painted. When you distance yourself from your wife, one of the most transformative experiences is the reflection on what you accept in the relationship. For years, many of us move through marriage on autopilot, adjusting, compromising, and tolerating behaviors without fully considering how they affect our happiness, dignity, or emotional well-being. Distance forces you to step back and look honestly at the patterns, habits, and interactions that you once brushed off or ignored. It creates a space where you can evaluate not just your partner's actions, but your own thresholds, boundaries, and willingness to tolerate certain behaviors. At first, this reflection can be uncomfortable. You begin to notice the moments where your feelings were dismissed, your opinions were overlooked, or your needs were consistently unmet. The little things, the casual criticism, the dismissive gestures, the emotional distance, suddenly become clear when viewed from a step back. You realize how much energy you've invested in smoothing over tensions, ignoring red flags, or justifying behaviors that should never have been normalized. It becomes evident that acceptance in the relationship has not always been a choice. It has sometimes been a default, a habit born of familiarity or fear of confrontation. As this awareness grows, you start to differentiate between compromise and concession. Compromise is a healthy part of any partnership. It involves negotiation, empathy, and mutual respect. Concession, however, is often one-sided, leaving you repeatedly sacrificing your peace, values, or happiness to maintain the status quo. Distance allows you to see where you have been conceding too much and where your tolerance has inadvertently reinforced patterns that are harmful or unfulfilling. It becomes a mirror reflecting not just your partner's actions, but the limits you've set or failed to set for yourself. This reflection also empowers you to recognize what you truly deserve. You begin to identify the behaviors, attitudes, and interactions that align with respect, love, and emotional reciprocity. You realize that accepting less than you deserve is not a testament to patience or devotion. It is a compromise of your own value. The process encourages you to reclaim agency over your life and choices, to define boundaries that protect your emotional well-being, and to stop rationalizing or excusing patterns that are detrimental to your growth. Furthermore, this reflection instills clarity in decision-making. With a better understanding of what you accept, you can navigate the relationship with intention rather than habit. You are able to confront recurring issues with honesty, communicate your needs without fear, and make choices that honor your self-respect. It also illuminates the nature of the bond itself, revealing whether the relationship is capable of mutual respect and growth, or if it perpetuates imbalance and compromise at your expense. Reflecting on what you accept is an act of empowerment. It allows you to take ownership of your life, assess the health of your relationship, and make conscious decisions about your future. It is not about judgment or resentment. It is about clarity, self-awareness, and the courage to prioritize your emotional integrity. By understanding what you have tolerated, you gain the wisdom to insist on what you deserve, fostering a life and a partnership built on respect, authenticity, and true reciprocity. When you distance yourself from your wife, one of the most profound transformations you experience is an emotional awakening. In the daily routine of a marriage, emotions often get blurred. Love, frustration, resentment, attachment, and longing intertwine in ways that make it difficult to truly understand what you feel. Stepping back creates the space necessary to feel fully, to confront emotions that were once suppressed, ignored, or justified away. This awakening is not always comfortable. It can be raw, disorienting, and at times even painful, but it is necessary for personal growth, clarity, and self-understanding. At first, you may notice a wave of emotions you didn't realize were present. Regret, sadness, or even guilt may surface as you reflect on patterns of behavior or moments you wish had been handled differently. You may confront feelings of anger or frustration that were previously buried under the weight of routine compromise or the desire to keep peace. Distance strips away distractions and forces you to sit with these emotions, to examine their source, and to acknowledge their significance. This process allows you to understand not just the reactions of your partner, but your own responses, vulnerabilities, and triggers. This emotional awakening also fosters deep self-awareness. You begin to see your own needs, desires, and boundaries with unprecedented clarity. What you once dismissed as minor irritations or inconveniences now appear as signals of unmet emotional needs. You start to recognize the difference between attachment and genuine emotional connection, between love that nourishes and love that drains. This insight allows you to make decisions not out of habit, fear, or obligation, but from a place of honesty and emotional intelligence. The awakening extends to your understanding of love itself. You start to realize that love is not about constant compromise or self-erasure. It is about mutual respect, understanding, and the freedom to grow both individually and together. When distance allows you to step outside the habitual patterns of the relationship, you see where affection was conditional, where effort was uneven, and where connection was diluted by neglect or miscommunication. This clarity is not meant to punish or condemn. It is meant to illuminate the emotional realities that were obscured by proximity. Moreover, this awakening strengthens your emotional resilience. By confronting your feelings fully, you learn to process them independently without relying solely on your partner for validation or comfort. You discover the ability to comfort yourself, to find peace in your own presence, and to navigate life's emotional highs and lows with self-sufficiency. This resilience empowers you to approach relationships, both current and future, with greater clarity, patience, and discernment. Distance also deepens empathy. As you explore your own emotions, you begin to recognize the emotional patterns of your partner more clearly. You see their fears, insecurities, and limitations. And while this does not justify harmful behavior, it allows you to approach interactions with understanding rather than reactive emotion. This awareness transforms the way you communicate, set boundaries, and navigate conflict. Emotional awakening is the gift of space. It is the realization that your emotions are valid, that your needs matter, and that true connection requires awareness, authenticity, and balance. Through this awakening, you reclaim your emotional power, strengthen your self-understanding, and prepare yourself for a life and relationships that are grounded not in habit or compromise, but in clarity, respect, and genuine emotional alignment. When you finally distance yourself from your wife, one of the most striking experiences is the revelation of true connection. In the day-to-day life of a marriage, it's easy for familiarity, routine, and obligations to blur the lines between genuine connection and mere coexistence. You may feel together yet emotionally distant, caring yet disconnected, or loved yet unfulfilled. Stepping back creates the space to see these distinctions clearly, revealing not only the depth of your bond, but also the authenticity of the relationship itself. Distance acts as a mirror, reflecting the realities of your emotional landscape. When you are no longer constantly available, the patterns of communication, attention, and care become more apparent. You begin to notice who reaches out, who respects your boundaries, and who values your presence without taking it for granted. True connection is not measured by proximity or convenience. It is measured by the effort, understanding, and intention behind each interaction. This revelation can be both enlightening and painful, as it exposes gaps that were previously hidden by routine or the comfort of habitual presence. As you step back, the moments of absence reveal much about mutual respect and effort. True connection is characterized by reciprocity. It shows itself when both partners prioritize each other's emotional needs, actively listen, and make conscious choices to nurture the bond. In contrast, superficial connection becomes evident when effort is minimal, engagement is transactional, or attention is conditional. The contrast can be stark. What once felt like unity may now appear as habit, obligation, or convenience. This clarity is invaluable, as it allows you to assess the health of the relationship without being clouded by emotional attachment or fear of confrontation. Distance also highlights emotional honesty. When you are not constantly enmeshed in shared routines, you gain perspective on how your partner responds to your independence. Do they honor your need for space, or do they react with resentment or manipulation? True connection thrives on trust, respect, and freedom, while superficial bonds often falter under pressure or distance. Observing these reactions provides insight into the strength of the relationship and the emotional maturity of both partners. This revelation also reshapes your understanding of intimacy. Emotional connection is not just about shared experiences or physical closeness. It is about feeling seen, understood, and valued for who you truly are. When distance is introduced, you can evaluate whether intimacy is genuine or performative. You learn to differentiate between moments of authentic vulnerability and displays that exist merely to maintain the illusion of closeness. This awareness deepens your capacity for meaningful engagement, not only with your partner, but with yourself and others. Furthermore, the revelation of true connection fosters personal growth. As you observe the dynamics from a distance, you gain clarity about your own desires, boundaries, and non-negotiables. You begin to understand what you need to feel fulfilled and respected, and this awareness informs your choices moving forward. The relationship, whether it endures or transforms, becomes a catalyst for self-discovery, emotional clarity, and empowerment. The revelation of true connection is a gift that distance provides. It strips away illusions, exposes authenticity, and challenges both partners to confront the reality of their bond. Through this process, you learn to recognize the difference between convenience and commitment, habit and devotion, proximity and genuine presence. This understanding allows you to approach the relationship or any future connection with clarity, intention, and emotional wisdom. When you finally distance yourself from your wife, one of the most profound outcomes is transformation and growth. Relationships, especially marriages, often shape our identities in ways that are subtle but pervasive. Over time, you may find that your priorities, behaviors, and even your sense of self have been influenced, sometimes unconsciously, by the dynamics of the relationship. Stepping back creates the space to reassess, reevaluate, and reclaim the parts of yourself that have been overshadowed. This distance becomes a catalyst for personal evolution, allowing you to grow in ways that would have been difficult while immersed in the everyday demands of the marriage. At first, the process of transformation can feel uncomfortable. The familiar patterns, routines, and roles that once defined your life are disrupted, leaving you with a sense of uncertainty. You may feel doubt, guilt, or even fear as you navigate this new space, but it is precisely this discomfort that sparks growth. By confronting these feelings, you are forced to examine your choices, values, and desires with honesty. You begin to recognize what aspects of your life were shaped by compromise, obligation, or expectation, and which reflect your true self. This self-awareness lays the foundation for genuine transformation. Growth during this period is multifaceted. Emotionally, you develop resilience. Experiencing distance from your partner allows you to process your feelings independently without relying solely on external validation. You learn to manage loneliness, disappointment, and frustration with maturity and self-reliance. Mentally, you gain clarity. The space from constant interaction offers perspective on the relationship, helping you identify patterns, habits, and areas where change is necessary. You start to see what is essential, what is negotiable, and what is non-negotiable for your happiness and well-being. This transformation also extends to your sense of self-worth. By stepping back, you reaffirm that your value is inherent and not contingent upon approval, attention, or affection from your partner. You begin to set boundaries with confidence, make decisions aligned with your needs, and honor your priorities without guilt. This empowerment is a cornerstone of personal growth, as it teaches you to advocate for yourself while maintaining respect and integrity in your interactions. Distance also fosters deeper insight into relationships themselves. You begin to understand that connection is not defined by proximity or routine, but by effort, authenticity, and mutual respect. You learn to differentiate between healthy interdependence and codependence, between love that nourishes and love that constrains. This understanding equips you with the wisdom to cultivate stronger, more intentional relationships in the future, whether with your current partner or others. Transformation and growth are the natural outcomes of creating space in a marriage. They are not just about discovering independence or reclaiming identity. They are about evolving into a version of yourself that is self-aware, confident, and empowered. Through distance, you shed the limitations imposed by unconscious patterns, embrace your individuality, and emerge with greater clarity, emotional strength, and a deeper understanding of what it truly means to live authentically. This journey of transformation, though challenging, is a profound gift, laying the groundwork for a life and relationships built on honesty, respect, and personal fulfillment. Distancing yourself from your wife is never an easy decision, yet it often becomes a necessary journey towards self-discovery, clarity, and growth. Through this space, you rediscover your identity, confront your emotions honestly, and gain a deeper understanding of the dynamics within your relationship. You learn what you are willing to accept, recognize the true nature of connection, and awaken to your own emotional needs and boundaries. Loneliness transforms into freedom, discomfort becomes insight, and distance becomes a powerful teacher guiding you towards self-respect, authenticity, and personal empowerment. Ultimately, stepping back is not about abandoning love. It is about honoring yourself, reclaiming your life, and evolving into a stronger, wiser, and more fulfilled version of who you are meant to be.